Today is August 24th, 2023. My name is Melissa Ackerman, and I will be interviewing Bobby Goodman today at the J. Hi, Bobby. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great. First thing, why don't you tell me about your family, your parents, grandparents, where you grew up?
Okay, great. Well, let's see. My paternal grandparents was Simon and Sophie Goodman. Simon was born in Poland, in a city, I don't think it exists today, but Mizrach, Poland. And he came to the United States through Galveston. My grandmother, Sophie, was born in New York. And so my dad is Jack Goodman, my mom was Ruth Goodman. And they were, he was one of three siblings. And on my mother's side, I don't know a lot about my grandparents on my mother's side. She lost them when she was young, and I know my mom was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and grew up in outside of San Antonio in Carrizo Springs. But in any event, my parents had 5 kids. I'm the youngest of 5. So my grandfather came to Dallas. So my dad was born in 1919 in Dallas. So if he was living, he'd be 104 this year. So that's a long Dallasite. And let's see here. You asked about where obviously I was born in Dallas.
Well, how did your parents meet?
So my dad, let's see, I'm not exactly sure the exact situation. They were in Dallas at the time. My mom was up here, and my dad was getting ready to go to the Army. And they met probably at a dance or something that was going on in the Dallas area. What
year did they meet?
So I'm not exactly sure the year. They got married in, I think, in 1942, and during the war. And but I don't know enough about how they met. Or when. Okay. I know they went to the Broadmoor for their hotel, for their honeymoons.
Oh, Colorado Springs?
Yeah,
very
exactly.
Nice. And what part of town did they live in?
So my dad grew up in the South Boulevard in South Dallas, and when they got married, they bought a home at Marydale, which is south of Oak Cliff area, and lived there for quite a few years after my older sister Joni was born. And then they moved out north, which would have been considered really far north Dallas, kind of the Inwood, Walnut Hill area, and that's where I grew up. So
what street?
So we lived on Waller Drive, which was just like I said, just off of Inwood and Walnut Hill. And unfortunately, that house burned down. I'll never forget it. I was a senior in college, but that was the only home I ever knew.
Were they still living there?
They were living there, and fortunately, no one was at home. But out of town, everybody was out of town. I was in college, and unfortunately, we lost a lot of. I lost, all the pictures I had of my childhood and a little bit, but everybody was safe, so that was the main thing.
Yeah. So, you're the youngest of 5. Tell me about your siblings.
So I have 3 sisters and a brother. My oldest sister, Joni, lives in, now she lives in Albuquerque, and she's going to be 76. Barbara is next, and she graduated from Hillcrest High School at 17, went to the University of Colorado, and then never came back. She lives in Colorado. My brother Chuck, he was my partner in business for 40 years, and he now lives in East Texas. After we sold the business, he moved out to East Texas. And then I have a sister, Beth, who's a year older than me, who lives here, still here in Dallas. And then there's, of course, then I came.
Okay. And what kind of business were you in?
So I was in a business called Goodies from Goodman, and it was kind of an offshoot of my grandfather started a company called Goodman Produce Company. So they were in the wholesale fruit and vegetable. He started his business in downtown Dallas and Highland Park in a horse and buggy selling fruit. Then my dad joined that business and grew the business into a major wholesaler in Dallas. And then during the holiday seasons, they would sell fruit baskets and gift baskets just for the fourth quarter. And that was the beginnings of a company called Goodies from Goodman, of which really my mom and my brother really started back in the 70s, or made it an annual full-time business. And then I joined when I graduated college in 78. So we were in the retail gift business, gifts of food. We were once probably one of the largest caterers in the city of Dallas, and also a florist. So we had a lot going on. We had retail stores, and then that business evolved, and then my brother and I sold it 5 years ago.
Okay.
It's still in existence as Goodies from Goodman. They wanted all the history. If you go to their website, you'll see information about my grandfather, Simon Goodman's peddling fruit, with a picture of him peddling in his horse and buggy here in Dallas. So it's very cool.
So what high school did you graduate from?
So I graduated from St. Mark's, and I was a product of public school for elementary and junior high. That's what we called it back then, junior high. And then they started. Busing started at that time, and my folks thought I would be better suited for St. Mark's. So I started late. I started in 10th grade, but I did graduate from St. Mark's.
And where'd you go to college?
I went to the University of Texas in Austin, and some of the best times of my life were those 4 years in Austin.
When you were growing up, were you involved in any Jewish activities?
So, as you know, many of my friends were very active in AZA and BBG, and my sister was very active, and I joined for a while, thinking that's what would be great for me. It just wasn't a fit for me. People liked the kid that maybe I couldn't handle the pressure of my sister being my sweetheart. So.
It is a little weird.
It is a little weird. But all those were still my friends, and I still hung with them. But I was more of I spent more time at the Jewish Country Club that my parents belonged to, which was the Columbian Club. So you either back then you either played at the JCC, which we did, or you were involved at the Jewish Country Club. Those were kind of the Jewish activities that I knew of, that I was aware of.
Were you members of a congregation?
We were. So I grew up at Shereth Israel, and so was there most of my, up until, was married there, confirmed there a little bit, bar mitzvah there. And then, now we've moved around since, and we've really been, was a member of Temple Shalom. I am currently a member of Temple Emmanuel, and but have been at all of them. But I grew up in Shereth Israel.
And were you bar mitzvah?
I was. I had a bar mitzvah at Shereth Israel. We, used to go to Hebrew school. I remember Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then you had Sunday school. So 3 days a week, and I was bar mitzvah there. And but it was. Those weren't always my closest friends, but at least I was very close to a few of them, and my friends were at school and at the club. So
Did you play any sports?
I did. I played all the sports growing up: football and baseball, and got involved with golf really from my dad at the Columbian Club, and so was in high school played soccer and was on the golf team.
Did you play any sports today?
I still play golf, and due to surgery here and there, I've kind of cut out all the other ones like tennis. I used to play a lot of tennis at the JCC, But now I'm really golf is really my go-to sport.
Mm-hmm. Have you been affiliated with other Jewish organizations as you've been an adult?
I guess it defines on when I became an adult,
Well,
when
when you were legally an adult.
Yeah. So I was. I'll go back to college days. I was involved in a Jewish fraternity, ZBT, and really those was the foundations of really my closest friends for life from those days. I was grew up at the JCC as well, but got involved at the JCC, was on the board for 10 years, an officer for quite a few years there, and then have been involved with the Jewish Federation, and where I was never on the board, I did co-chair some significant, of their events. They called it at the time Super Sunday, which I think is their telephone Sunday, and I was co-chair of the men's event, and I co-chaired a mission to Israel through the Federation. So I had involvement at the Federation as well.
When was the mission that you were involved in?
Well, let's see here. There were the mission that I was involved with was had leadership at some other ones in '97. I was a bus captain, but I co-chaired with a close friend of mine, Stuart Prescott, in 2001 or 2, and unfortunately that trip got changed a little bit because of the fighting that was going on at the time in Israel, but it was a very memorable situation. So, but we still went, and it just changed a little bit. We lost some people, but You
didn't lose them.
We didn't lose them. They decided not to go at the time.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Good point. Thanks for that follow-up question.
I just wanted to be sure. I hadn't heard anything about that. So what kinds of things did you like to do when you were growing up? What were you mentioned going out to the Columbian Club. Did you hang out there a lot? Were there other things that you enjoyed doing?
Well, growing up in the 60s, obviously a lot different than it is today. That was back in the day where you could get on your bike and you tell your folks, just be home by 6, and you'd ride off and play in the neighborhood. So we did a lot of neighborhood fun things with kids, and so that was my early childhood. I remember just being able to run off and go anywhere. Of course, you can't really do that today. Now it's kind of hard to even go get the mail without somebody watching, that you're going outside. It's pretty sad, but that is what we have today. And then, like I said, the Columbian Club was, I spent a lot of time. I remember my mom would drop me off early in the morning at the Columbian Club, and there were probably a core of 10 to 20 of us that spent the day there. We
just eat lunch there.
We'd eat lunch, we'd go swimming, we'd play golf, and to this day, I still playing golf, and some of those are my closest friends. So we did Columbian Club and playing golf, and so I remember most of my childhood or even early teens spending time out there, and so that was my home away from home.
And are you married?
I am married.
I
am married to Alyssa as my wife. She's from Chicago. Interesting, I met her, she's 4 years younger than I am, so I was a senior in college and she was a senior in high school. The first time I met her, I was a senior in college, and she came down to visit the school, and she happened to stay with, at that time, my girlfriend's place, and that's where I met her. And then 4 years went on, I never really saw her again, and then we had what would have been a blind date, although we hadn't met, but 4 years, a lot of time had gone by, so it was considered a blind date. When she graduated, 4 years later, we had our first date, and then we may have had 2 dates, and then we got engaged. So it was love at first sight for at least for me. You'll have to interview her for her opinion on that.
What year was that?
We've been married, let's see here, 1983, so we've been 40 years. So,
wow. Okay.
So 2 dates, and I knew it. Now, she would say it seems like 7 minutes, but underwater with me. But
do you have any children?
We do. We have 3 children. I have twin girls that are 34 and a son who's 31. And then each of my daughters, the twins, they live in Houston. They each have 3 kids. And my son, who is a rabbi in Cincinnati, he has 2 children. So we're very lucky and fortunate to have 8 grandchildren.
Do you get to see them often?
Well, it's a lot easier to get down to Houston. Unfortunately, no one's here, but it's a lot easier to get to Houston. So we see them quite often, at least once a month. We go down there to help babysit, just hang. And then my son, he and his family, we're able to try to get together 2 or 3 times a year. But he's, like I say, he's a rabbi, so he's awfully busy. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, are your daughters involved in the Jewish community in some way?
So all 3 of my kids are really involved in the Jewish community. My daughter Jacqueline has been a teacher for, I want to say, almost 12 years and at Beth Yeshurun, which is the Jewish day school there. Her and her husband are also very involved in the Federation in Houston. My other daughter, Jessica, and her husband are very involved at Beth Yeshurun as well. And they've all been very, very involved in the Jewish community of Houston. Obviously, my son, as a rabbi, is
that's why I didn't
Jewish.
That's why I didn't ask you about him, because he is.
But all 3 of my kids really, really got their foundation because they were all very involved in BBYO here in Dallas, and so that was their go-to, and it really set the stage for what I believe is really the Jewish foundation today, and why they're so involved, because they believe in all the wonderful causes that they've learned about.
Are you particularly proud of any of the activities you've worked on in the community?
Repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Are you particularly proud of any of the activities you've worked on in the community, any programs you've been involved in?
Absolutely. I mean, just the involvement of the Federation and all the wonderful things that it does, leading that trip to Israel, my involvement at the JCC. I mean, this is the place that everybody goes to that are affiliated and are not affiliated. So, and I was, like I said, I was a board member and an officer here. So those were really important to me. And really, I think it wasn't my involvement, but I'm really proud of the fact of the involvement that my kids had in BBYO and the leadership roles that they took, because I think it really set the stage for how involved they are today. So,
How do you think the Dallas Jewish community has changed over the years?
Well, let's see here. I would say that when I was younger and growing up, there were, like I said earlier, a few things you were involved with. You were either a member of the JCC or you were at the country club, at the Jewish Country Club, and then, of course, it was the Federation. And there were a handful of things that you could get involved with, and there were maybe more. I just didn't really know of them. Those were the main ones. Today, it seems like whatever your passion in, there is some type of Jewish organization that you could get involved with. You know, back then maybe there were 4 temples or synagogues, and now I can't tell you how many there are. I mean, it could be 40 that you could be involved with, and you know, based on your location and your whole. So I just think there's opportunities today, more opportunities, that you should be able to find something today that really tickles your passion, because there's much more of them available to you.
Do you have any role models?
Role models? Well, my parents would definitely be my role models. To raise 5 kids and work as hard as they did. My dad was always, I mean, he would go to work at 4 in the morning, and he would come home by dinner time. And what I admired the most about it was that when he came home, he was dad. He didn't bring home work, and it wasn't until I was older and actually worked with him and for him that I said, who is this man at work? I mean, I never saw this guy before. I mean, he was tough, really tough, but the family never saw that. He was really great at being able to come home and become dad. My mom, you know, although she didn't, she worked after I got out of school with the goodies from Goodman, but, you know, she was raising 5 kids. That was a lot of work. And so, you know, they're definitely my role models. And so, you know, we had a big family, and they were always present. So.
Close family?
Pardon me?
Were you a close family?
Very close, and to this day we're extremely close. So, and I know every family has this situation and that situation. It's just part of life. But really proud of the fact that all my siblings, and my parents are no longer living, and we lost them when we were much younger. I was 31 years old, so they've been gone a long time. But we, the family, the siblings, have remained very close. But I grew up in a big family. Like I said, my dad had 2 sisters, and so they each had 4 kids, and so there were 13 first cousins, and we all
living in Dallas.
All living in Dallas, and we did everything together. And there was 13 of us, and my sister was the oldest, and I was the youngest of the 13. So there was about a 9-year difference that we shoved 13 people in there. So we had a lot the same age, and we did every holiday together. So family was really the focus of our life.
How did you celebrate the holidays?
Well, we, as long as my grandparents were living, we would go to, you know, have these huge Passovers at their house, but it was always with a family, with my aunts and uncles and cousins. And
was this all on your father's side?
They were all on my father's side. And my mom had a brother who lived in Dallas as well, and one that lived in San Antonio. But we just didn't see them as much because the other was such a tight, you know, we all lived within a couple miles of each other. So it was and we were, not only were we cousins, we were all best friends. And to this day, we still are. Did you have any special ways that you celebrated holidays? Any special family traditions that you carried on? Well, I don't know if it was special, but to us it was special because we were all together. But generally it was a meal or a celebration at my grandparents', or really could have been at our house or at one of my aunts or uncles' houses. But it was really more just a gathering of family together for, you know, to be together. Mm-hmm. What are you most proud of in your life? Well, I would have to say I'm most proud of my kids, and the lifestyles that they've adopted, and their involvement in their Jewish communities, but more, I guess most importantly, the parents that they've become. It's really a cool thing to see your children as parents. It's just a whole different deal, and just to see that makes both my wife and myself really, really proud that somewhere along something stuck, and so just see that, that's definitely the proudest moment, is just to watch them in action.
What do the grandkids call you?
So I'm Papa, and that's a moving target. Excuse me. I think I started off as Poppy, but it's whatever they kind of latch on to. So I'm Papa to them, and Alyssa, my wife, is Gaga, and there are 8 of them, like I said. The oldest is 6, and the youngest is like 8 months. So there are a lot of little ones all jammed in there, but it's the best.
That's wonderful. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm really excited to have been able to do this. I happened to have watched some of these earlier, and I think it's so important because there's so much that we can learn from the past and from our ancestors. So there's nothing I want to add other than to say thank you for allowing me to share this part of my story.
Thank you, and your children and grandchildren will be able to see you and hear you and everything you had to say. So it's been great. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Melissa.